Hi, this is Reverend Jane Newell, and I'm at Federated Church of Christ in Brooklyn, Connecticut, and this is See Jane Preach. Today we're going to be talking about the Bible. And when you come into a church, we're talking about the Bible, we're reading scripture from the Bible. There's Bibles in the pews, some people carry them into church with them, and you look at this book and you say, oh, that's a pretty big book. Where do I start? Because for most of us, we don't even read the guides to how to run a camera or use our microwave. We want that quick start guide. So for the Bible, here's your quick start guide. This is my Bible, and I've had it for about 30 years, and you can see by the bindings where my go-to places are, because I've been using it. The place I would suggest starting would be the Gospels. There's 4 of them, and they are starting about 3/4 of the way through this book in what's called the Christian Scriptures, or traditionally known as the New Testament, as compared to the Hebrew Scriptures, or traditionally Old Testament. And there's 4 of these Gospels to start with: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And each are like watching a different news channel about the same news story. There's going to be some nuances and some different flavors in how the reporting gets done. Also, these were not written right when Jesus was alive. The closest one was about a generation past his death. The next couple, 2 generations past his death, and the next one 3. So there's a little bit of a slant, some nuances about how the stories get told. If you want an action-oriented gospel, start with the Gospel of Mark. It is the shortest one. It will take you about an hour to read if you just read it right through. It starts with Jesus' baptism, chapter 1. You get healings, you get disciples called, you get Jesus' temptations. A lot happens just in the first chapter. And it goes on to talk about the different miracles that he performed, the interactions with different groups of people, his crucifixion and resurrection. Now, the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke share very much the same story as Mark. Scholars think they had the Gospel of Mark in front of them when they were writing. In addition, they had what's called the Q source. Not Q as in Star Trek, Next Generation, just Q source, because there's similarities not only with Mark, but also with some of the stories that Luke and Matthew are relaying to people as well. Then again, there are some different slants on how these stories are being told. The Gospel of Matthew is very concerned about using Hebrew Scripture to prove to the Jewish people of the day that Jesus is indeed the Messiah they were expecting. The Gospel of Luke also believes the same as Matthew and adds a greater maybe understanding of Jesus going out into the world and to be working amongst the Gentiles, or the non-Jewish people of the day. Luke is also more prone to talk about women in the stories than the Gospel of Matthew is. The 4th Gospel is the Gospel according to John. Some people call this the Believer's Bible. It's the only Gospel that talks about believers as a word. And this one is much more philosophical. It's written in a slightly different community than the first 3, which are known as the Synoptic Gospels, and is more metaphorical in terms of language, and has a certain poetry in it as well. So if you like metaphors, well, start with the Gospel according to John. Any one of these 4 Gospels can help you understand who Jesus is. Now, just a quick word. There are various translations of the Bible, and you want to pick one that you can actually read. So often people will say the King James Bible. Well, if you like Shakespeare, it's a great Bible because it's written that kind of language. More contemporary ones, I think, would be more helpful to you getting to know Jesus. So we use the New Revised Standard Version here. Some people prefer other translations, and that's perfectly fine. So pick it up, have a look at it, and see what you think about the story of Jesus. If you're struggling with something personally, and that's why you're turning to church, well, yes, Jesus is good on that. However, you may also wish to look at the Psalms, and they are about in the middle of the Bible. And these are personal prayers and testimonies and praises and confessions and anxieties and all kinds of different feelings that the writers are talking to God about and trying to work through for themselves. I'll go into another video with more details about the different kinds of psalms. But you may find yourself saying those words and phrases and taking comfort in knowing that people were feeling very much like you're feeling right now and calling out to God and trying to work through those things. So the Psalms may be a place to start for you. Anyway, blessings on your journey and on your studies.